We always think about what it would be like to live longer than the average human, and what it would feel like to have everyone you know taken from you by the flow of time several times throughout that lifespan. A lot of stories have attempted to illustrate this idea, but very few of them ever rise up to the surface, especially in the world of anime. One of those that did is Frieren, Beyond Journey's End. In this series, we follow the life of Frieren, an elf that's lived much longer than her appearance would suggest, coming up at about 1,000 years. Never before has that length of time ever been so palpable. We see the landscapes change, new people being born and passing away, none of which really seem to matter to Frieren, until one eventful generation. Enter the Heroes Party, composed of Frieren, the elf mage, Himmel, the hero, Heiter the priest, and Aizen the warrior. They just come back from a 10-year-long adventure to defeat the Demon Lord, and they take a moment to watch a meteor shower and reminisce on that time they've spent together, during which they all make a promise to watch the next one that comes in 50 years from a better spot. They then also decide to disband the party, since there was no more Demon Lord at play, to live their own lives. Frieren's initial response being, "Aight, that was cool. Hasta la vista, bitches!" Come 50 years later, the once heroic-looking Himmel is now just a dusty old man living his life. The whole party reunites for their final adventure to watch that promised meteor shower. However, shortly after, Himmel passes away. By this point, you'd think that Frieren would continue to be apathetic towards this event as she has been for the 1,000 years or so that she's lived. But no. This round of acquaintances really struck a chord in her that left a lingering sound, one that causes her to have a breakdown. Mind you, this wasn't purely due to the event of Himmel's passing, but more so what could have been. The 10 years the party spent together can seem like a substantial amount of a human's time, but to Frieren, that was just a passing moment, one that she'd thought had little to no value, until his death really put everything into a human's perspective for her. To the other members of the party, those 10 years were a once-in-a-lifetime experience, their camaraderie, special. But from Frieren's perspective, it seemed like they had way more than 10 years to get closer, until the reality of mortality finally hit her. Suddenly, all that time she'd been spending on her hobbies of collecting magic spells could have been spent on developing closer bonds with these other people that could and would vanish at any given moment. The regret she felt was sudden, immeasurable. From here on, Frieren tries to understand why those specific 10 years made such an impact on her, by going back to the beginning, and going beyond the journey's end to learn more about her deceased companions. Oh, but the warrior is still alive, because he's a dwarf, and dwarfs also have a longer lifespan, though not to the level of elves. Damn! This is how you start a story? Fuck, man, talk about a good hook! So, that's the premise. During this adventure, we see the impacts of the hero's party across various towns and villages, how landmarks and statues are erected to serve as a reminder of the party's accomplishments. Mostly because, even if they had saved the world the one time, they'd easily be forgotten about as time went on, unless there is someone there to tell the stories of their heroic feats. This is the big thing Frieren constantly has to deal with. The memories of times and people, long gone. Events that transpired, that might not matter to anyone 10, 15 years later. No proof of anything at all besides the thoughts and memories Frieren carries with her. I wanted to spotlight this series, even though it's in the brightest of spotlights as it is, because I genuinely think this might be one of the greatest series in modern anime or manga. This show isn't particularly flashy most of the time, though it definitely can be with some of its fights, but it really is an experience. This series, in my opinion, just aims to be a story about an elf that comes to learn the true meaning of mortality and to treasure it instead of wasting your time, gaming your days away or something like that. Building the connections you can, and to take it all in before you can't. Anyway, hype shit! During this post-journey journey, Frieren just becomes the most stoic badass you've ever seen, giving demons no shits, no fucks whatsoever. Oh ho, you want to compare my magic powers with yours? Well, too bad. I've been concealing my true power all along.
Aura, kill yourself.
Yeah, that's not too common of an occurrence. If you are looking for a weekly injection of dopamine from anime fights, this series will not fulfill that need in the slightest. Most of it is, dare I say it, a slice of life in a fantasy world. This is nowhere near your Naruto vs Sasuke, Tanjiro vs Rui, or Sukuna vs Jogo. It focuses more on just being in the moment, to absorb what Frieren is feeling, the things she sees, and the people she meets. Every episode starts with a reminder of how many years have passed since Himmel's death, as if to signify that Frieren is actually making note of the passage of time now that she's really grasped how valuable it is to the mortal beings around her. This story really is one hell of an experience, where you're able to live vicariously through Frieren, being able to visualize the life of an immortal and how impactful that can be. And what it comes down to is that a life is not about the time you have, or have left. It's about what you do with that time that really makes it special. But of course I say all of this, but we're all just gonna go back to our mundane activities anyways.